Good morning. Welcome to Kenya News Update today. Over the past 3 years, a silent war has been raging across our nation. It's not a conflict of ideologies or a struggle for resources in the traditional sense. This is a war being waged against women and girls in their own homes, on their own streets. The weapon? Overwhelming, brutal violence. The casualty figures are staggering, and they demand our immediate and undivided attention. Today, we're diving deep into the femicide crisis gripping Kenya, a crisis so severe that a special presidential task force was convened to confront it. We'll examine the shocking statistics, hear from those on the front lines, and debate the complex, painful reasons why this is happening. We begin with the numbers, and they tell a horrifying story. According to the report of the Technical Working Group on Gender-Based Violence, including femicide, presented to President William Ruto, Kenya has recorded more than 1,600 femicide cases in just the last 3 years. Let that number sink in. 1,639 women killed, simply for being women. That's an average of more than one woman murdered every single day for 3 years straight. The report, born from sustained public pressure, finally puts official data to a national nightmare. But these aren't just statistics on a page. They represent mothers, daughters, sisters, and friends. The geographic spread of this violence reveals troubling hotspots. While the tragedy touches every corner of the country, 2 counties stand out for the sheer volume of cases. Nairobi and Meru have emerged as among the worst affected regions. The concentration in urban Nairobi might speak to population density and reporting rates, but the high numbers in Meru point to a deep-seated cultural crisis that transcends mere urbanization. To understand the scale, we need to visualize it. The national total of 1,639 cases over 3 years is a figure so large it can feel abstract. But when we break it down, the horror becomes clearer. This translates to roughly 546 women killed per year, or about 45 women every single month. Think about that, a classroom of women gone every 30 days. The report further dissects the nature of these killings, revealing that a staggering 77% of these femicides were committed by intimate partners or close family members. This is not stranger danger. This is betrayal in the most intimate spaces, the home, the relationship that was supposed to be safe. The perpetrators are husbands, boyfriends, fathers, and brothers. This fact fundamentally changes how we must view the crisis. It's not a crime wave from the outside. It's a rot from within our most trusted social structures. Another chilling statistic from the report shows that in 10% of these cases, the women had previously reported threats or violence to authorities. They saw the danger coming, they cried out for help, and the system failed to protect them. This failure rate points to massive gaps in our protective legal and social services. Furthermore, the data indicates that only 4% of these cases have resulted in a conviction, a 96% impunity rate for killing a woman. That is not a justice system. That is a green light for murderers. This impunity is perhaps the single greatest fuel for the ongoing crisis. If a man knows he can kill his wife or partner and face only a 4% chance of ever being held accountable, what deterrent exists? Now, let's bring in our first perspective. With me is Dr. Amani Akath, a sociologist and gender-based violence researcher at the University of Nairobi. Dr. Akath, these numbers are devastating. How do you interpret this data, particularly the intimate partner violence figure? Dr. Akath, thank you for having me. The 77% figure is, tragically, the core of the issue. It tells us that femicide in Kenya is predominantly not a random act. It is the final, fatal escalation of ongoing control and abuse. It's the ultimate act of possession. If I can't have you, no one will. We are seeing patterns of extreme jealousy, retaliation for a woman's attempt to leave a relationship, or punishment for perceived challenges to male authority. The home, which should be a sanctuary, has become the most dangerous place for a Kenyan woman. This is reinforced by social norms that still view women as property and that discourage external interference in private family matters. We must dismantle the idea that what happens behind closed doors is nobody else's business. When a life is at stake, it is everyone's business. The data from the Technical Working Group is a powerful tool, but we must remember it likely undercounts the reality. Many deaths in rural areas or within certain communities may be misclassified or not reported at all. The true number is almost certainly higher. Thank you, Dr. Akath. That point about undercounting is crucial. The report itself was a reaction to public outcry, meaning the visible cases were just the tip of the iceberg. Now, let's shift from the statistical to the human impact. The report contains testimonies that are almost too painful to comprehend. In Trans and Zoe visually impaired women testified before the Technical Working Group. They described how unknown men slip into their homes at night, rape them, and vanish before dawn. These attackers specifically target women they perceive as vulnerable and less likely to be able to identify them. Some of these women are now raising children conceived from these rapes by men they do not know. The violation is compounded by a lifetime of consequence. Hundreds of kilometers away, in Wajir, the victim was a 4-year-old girl. She was defiled. The language of reports uses terms like case and victim, but we must force ourselves to see the individual, a toddler, whose life has been shattered before it even began. These are not isolated incidents. They are part of the same spectrum of violence that claims the lives of 1,639 women. It is a culture that devalues women and girls from infancy to adulthood. To discuss the legal and systemic response, I'm joined by Advocate Maria Caprono, a human rights lawyer who has represented numerous survivors. Advocate Caprono, with a 4% conviction rate, the justice system appears to be failing catastrophically. Where are the breakdowns happening? Advocate Caprono, the breakdown is total and systemic. It starts at the very first point of contact, the police station. Survivors or families of victims often face stigma, victim blaming, and outright refusal to record statements. Police may dismiss it as a domestic dispute. If a case is recorded, evidence collection is frequently botched. Forensic kits are unavailable. Crime scenes are not preserved. Then there is the intimidation of witnesses and the prolonged, traumatizing court process that can take years. Families often run out of money, will, or hope. Perpetrators use delay tactics and witnesses disappear. The Director of Public Prosecution's office is under-resourced, and prosecutors are overburdened. Finally, the courts themselves are slow, and some magistrates still hold archaic views about gender roles. The result is this 96% chance of walking free. We have good laws on paper, the Sexual Offenses Act, the Protection Against Domestic Violence Act, but they are meaningless without enforcement. We need specialized GBV courts, trained prosecutors and police units, and victim protection programs that actually work. The state is abdicating its primary duty to protect its citizens. Thank you. The call for specialized systems is growing louder. Now let's consider another angle. With us is Pastor Stephen Mwangi, a community leader from Meru County, one of the identified hotspots. Pastor Mwangi, in your community, what cultural or economic factors do you believe are contributing to this epidemic of violence against women? Pastor Mwangi, peace be with you. This is a painful topic for us. Meru is a proud community with strong traditions, but some of these traditions have been distorted. There is a deep-seated issue of male entitlement. Young men are growing up in an environment of high unemployment and a sense of futility. They are told they should be providers and heads of household, but the economy offers them no way to fulfill that role. This creates a powder keg of frustration and shame. Meanwhile, women are increasingly educated, employed, and independent. This shift in the balance, which should be celebrated, is seen by some men as a threat to their identity. The violence, especially from intimate partners, can be a brutal attempt to reassert a fading control. Additionally, there is still a culture of silence. Families will pressure a woman to stay with an abusive man to avoid scandal. Church and community elders sometimes preach forgiveness without accountability, sending women back into danger. We need a spiritual and cultural revolution, one that redefines manhood not as domination, but as partnership and protection. We must address the economic despair among our young men while unequivocally condemning violence as a response. It is a complex wound, and it requires a complex healing. Your point about economic despair is vital and often overlooked in this debate. It doesn't excuse violence, but it helps explain the context. So, we have perspectives from sociology, law, and community leadership. The question now is, what is being done, and is it enough? President Ruto received this damning report. His administration has spoken about the issue. But what concrete actions have followed? The government has announced plans to establish more gender-based violence recovery centers and hotlines. These are important support mechanisms, but they are reactive. They help after the violence has occurred. We need preventative action. There are proposals to fast-track GBV cases in court, but without the comprehensive overhaul Advocate Caprono mentioned, these may just be empty promises. The most significant step would be to declare femicide a national emergency, unlocking dedicated funding and focused political will. So far, that has not happened. The public, however, is not waiting. The sustained pressure that forced the creation of the technical working group is growing. Demonstrations, like the one we saw in Kisii Town during the 16 days of gender activism, are becoming more frequent. Social media campaigns like Stop Killing Women and End Femicide KE keep the issue in the public eye. Women's rights organizations are doing heroic work with minimal resources, offering shelters, legal aid, and counseling. This is a grassroots movement confronting a state-level failure. Let's return to the data for a final, comparative thought. We've focused on the 1,639 lives lost. But to grasp the true toll, we must consider what is lost with each one. The economic potential, the community leadership, the nurturing of the next generation. A recent study estimated that gender-based violence costs Kenya billions of shillings annually in healthcare, lost productivity, and judicial expenses. This is not just a moral crisis, it is a developmental catastrophe. It holds the entire nation back. As we conclude, the debate often centers on a false choice: protect women or understand men. The testimony from Mehru shows we must do both. We must have a ruthless, efficient justice system that delivers convictions and ends impunity. Simultaneously, we must invest in boys and men through education, economic opportunities, and mental health services to foster non-violent masculinity. We must change the stories our children hear and the examples they see. The 1,639 women recorded in the report are gone. We cannot bring them back. But their deaths must be the catalyst for a fundamental change. The question for President Ruto's administration, for county governments, for community elders, and for every Kenyan is this: what will you do today to ensure that next year's report does not contain another 546 names? The time for reports is over. The time for action is now. This has been a Kenya News Update Today deep dive investigation. Subscribe to Kenya News Update Today for more in-depth coverage of the issues that matter.